I think what we're seeing now is, following the Ukrainian invasion, we're seeing a kind of jostling for kind of authority and a mandate to push the Ukrainians out. Obviously, if they had a coordinating body, that would probably be less of an issue, I would imagine. General Lapin has been a fixture of the Russian Defense Ministry for a very long time. He was a commander of one of the districts in Russia before the war started, and whenever the full-scale invasion of Ukraine began in February of 2022, he was called in and was a commander in the field there. He gained a good deal of infamy, probably among a lot of Russian soldiers and analysts in late 2022, whenever he was overseeing a number of forces who were basically run through by the Ukrainian military. There was a big advance in northeastern Ukraine late that year, and thinning troop numbers at the time and lack of fortifications allowed them to just roll right past them. Well, after that incident, he was removed and he went to a few kind of undisclosed locations. He was just kind of kept out of the public view for a while. And then earlier this year, he was reappointed to lead the northern grouping of Russian forces that are in Ukraine. And that was the group of forces that were basically in charge of the Russian offensive on Kharkiv, which was Ukraine's second biggest city and one that lies very close to the border in northern Ukraine. And so he comes into the picture in April, May of this time. And that's when we see some changes start to take place in and around that area. There was a kind of inter-organizational council that was in place. It was made up of various domestic security agencies, the FSB, the military, Russian National Guard, which is another body. There's many of these kind of parallel security agencies in place in Russia. And in this council, they all kind of had a place at the table. He came along and said, we don't need this. The military is in charge, and he disbanded it. I think it's very hard to place all of the blame for what happened in Kursk on him, but I think it was probably in hindsight not the best move to make. I think what we're seeing now is, following the Ukrainian invasion, we're seeing a kind of jostling for kind of authority and a mandate to push the Ukrainians out. Obviously, if they had a coordinating body, that would probably be less of an issue, I would imagine. I think there's a lot of very pent up and long running frustration with the defense ministry right now among soldiers, among Russian analysts, among kind of Russian hawks who want to see Russia pushing forward and doing better. That frustration has been boiling for a long time, and it's probably boiling over now. I wouldn't be surprised if there are some changes in the defense ministry. Putin is known for not responding to kind of incidents like that, to never really punish people in public even after grand failures that we've seen in the past. But this may be just a bridge too far. That's kind of the response that the Russians are giving right now, is that we're seeing a number of both domestic security agencies and the military. I'm sorry, could I repeat that, please? That is indeed the response that we're seeing right now. We're seeing the military as well as the plethora of Russian domestic security agencies, of which there are many, kind of jostling for position in terms of trying to take control and coordinate what is essentially a very complicated operation. I think the biggest takeaway from this incident is the fact that Russia's military command structure as such really does encourage a lot of top-down thinking. And so what you're seeing is a lot of things that are happening on the field being decided by people who aren't there, who are potentially thousands of miles away. Russia's kind of always had this problem with trusting, junior officers and those lower down in the command chain. So you have people who are always kind of making decisions way too high up the chain for them to really be effective or to respond adequately in a timely manner whenever things go wrong. People who are removed from the situation, removed from the field situation, tactically and operationally, and people who are trying to make a name for themselves in their own office. When we're looking at Putin's regime, I think we're looking at a state that is able to absorb a lot of shock in a lot of different ways. It's a huge country, first and foremost. We're talking about a minuscule percentage of the territory that is actually under occupation. Of course, these people have left. More than 300,000 people have left the area. They've carried their stories with them, right? So whatever you can show on state TV, there's other people who are actually indeed telling their own stories, and those travel. At the same time, though, Putin has managed to withstand some incredible black swan events, not just during the last 2 years, but before that as well. As long as he has control over all of the domestic security agencies, he's likely to remain in power. I don't see this being a huge change for him. However, it may lead to some changes in personnel in the defense ministry.
India will play this role. I think that India began to recognize that this is not just conflict, this real war of one man, and his name is Putin, against whole country, which name is Ukraine. And you're a big country, you have big influence, and you can stop Putin, and you can stop and hold his economy and put him really on his place.